Hi everyone, welcome back again to Spiritual Growth Tarot. I'm Denise, and today I won't be using any tarot or any cards. I am going to dive into Trump's astrology, being that we have the full moon coming up. It might be tomorrow, it might be the day of the full moon before I get this uploaded, but anyway, I have 3 charts that I have pulled on him. So I have his natal chart with his transits, and then I also have his secondary progressions and his solar arcs. So boy, do we have a lot of information here. But I'm going to keep it as concise as I can and focus just on his finances, because that's all he cares about, right? It's the only way to get him. Follow the money. So, but anyway, let me drop the camera down and I'll show you what I have here. Okay, so just a refresher on his natal chart I have right here. I have to preface this whole thing by speaking to the fact that I'm not going to be able to remain unbiased about this soul, although I never would be unbiased towards anyone's spirit. So I do hold that somewhere deep inside his spirit is, is there, but it's shrouded by all this very, very clouded, blocked soul substance that doesn't let his, his spirit shine through. So, and I also believe, because of, research I've done, and because of, I am trained a little bit in psychopathology. I do believe he's a born psychopath. And the challenging thing about that is that they've lost their deeper connection to their spirit self. And it can take many, many, many lifetimes of pain and agony, to reclaim that connection. But I do believe that his prior, maybe there's been some in between, but I do believe that he was Caligula, who died in 41 AD, and Mussolini died in 1945. We can see here he was born in 1946. And who knows how many lifetimes there could have been in between Caligula and Mussolini, but here he is, and I'm going to read this from the lens, coming from the lens of, of a very unhealthy ego, who hasn't done the deeper inner self-work needed in order to clear his soul. So if you have any planets in any of these signs, ascendant, IC, midheaven, descendant, any of that, please ignore what I'm saying for you, because I'm reading this in the most wounded sense, in the most dysfunctional sense, because I do believe he's a born psychopath. So, just hold that in your heart. Please don't take anything personally if you have anything alike, by sign and planetary configurations or planets and signs. So with that in mind, just to go over his natal chart, Mars is here on his ascendant. Mars and the Sun are his chart rulers. And Mars in Leo can be either beautifully loving and moving towards love and generosity, or a rageaholic. And he's a rageaholic, right? And then his Sun is up here in the 10th house, and conjunct when we have this stellium. Whenever we have stelliums together, we read it all together, especially when they're in such a tight orb here from 17 to 22 degrees. So he's like this, he's full of this his solar essence, and his path in life is to get in touch with the fact that he's got this mental chaos inside that just can't settle into who he really is. And that's further reiterated here by the moon. And this is, the moon conjunct the south node is usually somebody who was famous in a past life. definitely tied to his family. He incarnated into family wealth. If he has any positive, beliefs going on, at least he believes in abundance, right? But the problem with him is it's just this, transactional type of mentality where do whatever you want to get whatever you want, and the money is the only thing that matters. And it's so tied to his sense of self, of course, we can see that. So another thing I look at is where Pluto is and where it will transit through the natal chart. Pluto takes 243 to 248 years to get around a natal chart. It's now in his 5th house. I'll show you that chart's coming up next along with the Leo full moon, which is, of course, why I'm doing this reading. But hang in there, because I also have his secondary progressions in his solar arc, or solar arcs, I should say. So, but anyway, when Pluto comes through in the 2nd house, or 12th house, there's unfinished soul work to do, or you're in a position of spiritual type of leadership or very, very compassionate leadership. I tend to look at it as either you're a saint or a psychopath, or you're on your way of, being sainted, but you're having to move through many lifetimes of trying to find your sense of self, trying to find your soul. And I always believe that there's, you just don't give up and you keep working, and, But so I'm clocking this guy as a psychopath, nowhere near a saint, nowhere near sainthood, or at least this particle of him that he decided, this ego fragment that he decided to incarnate into this lifetime in order to heal. Maybe he's saintly on some other levels and we're not seeing that. But it doesn't really work that way. I mean, we could think that way with our heads, but the way it works on the soul level is that the more you work on your darkness, your light comes through. It's exactly like Carl Jung's quote, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So he hasn't worked on his soul, and all he does is project. He projects everything outward. And it's particularly dangerous because of this 11th house up here, having his Venus conjunct Saturn connected in Cancer has to do with, being born into family wealth. These two together can be wealth. But it's also tied to humanity, and so much of his goals, it's like he has this deep inner goal to control humanity. Now, who else might have done that? Mussolini, right? We're talking dictator, autocratic, like Putin. These are dark, dark characters who cause nothing but pain and misery in other people's lives. So here with Mars to the moon, and now oftentimes in charts I would say that the harmonious aspects are positive, and the other ones are challenging, but in his chart, I'm just going to see them as contact points, because he's pushing 75 and he has not done the inner work to bring through his light. And many of you would probably say, oh, he doesn't have any light. Well, we all have light, but we can't find his. We can't find his. And then it's further, reiterated right down here where we can see Jupiter conjunct Chiron, his deepest inner wounds, and his sense of self-insecurity is completely dependent upon relationship. It's like money and relationships tied together with his deepest wounding. And he's also like gifted in manipulating others. With money, perks, fame, his just, you know how people are. It's crazy the way they like him. We would have thought that what was it, Access Hollywood video that came out about, what he said about women when you're famous, right? All that's like right here. Right here. And you can do whatever you want when you're famous. You would have thought that would have turned enough people off, but it made some people like him even more, which is really sick. But that's what we're dealing with here when we have Neptune, the planet of mass consciousness, conjunct Chiron and then Jupiter. It's blown up. And Jupiter can sometimes blind. Neptune creates fogginess and delusion when it's in its darkest, but in its highest, it's source and source energy to the spiritual world. But we can see he hasn't worked through that, and it's squaring Mercury up here, so we can also see this tendency for him to. Now, I would never say this about anyone else, but Mercury square Neptune can be indicators of someone who just lies to get what they want or lies to manipulate. And he would do it, of course, he would lie and manipulate to, all of humanity just to get the money he wants. Because remember, the second house is the house of money, personal money. Now, 8th house is the house of other people's resources. But just a note here, just because there aren't any planets in any of these houses, these empty houses, doesn't mean anything, because what you do is you go to the rulers of the signs. So we need to put Neptune and Mars in his 8th house, which brings in this false belief that others are here to fulfill my desires, right? I mean, it's just like, wow. And then Neptune here in his 2nd house further reiterates that. Now, the 6th house you can look to for money, but it's more like your sense of service. Well, with his part of fortune there in Aquarius, this is like, and it's opposing his ascendant, so this like rageaholic behavior. And, think like Rush Limbaugh and Alex Jones, like where they know. And this is right up here, and it's square his midheaven. How he participates in life is all about just making the money, and it's to stir people up just to make money, just to get attention. He believes that that even bad attention is good. Bad publicity is still publicity. He doesn't differentiate. There's no distinction. So. That on top of, so it's like, Rush Limbaugh and how they just hate people, and they know that hate pays, and it's their own self-hatred projected outwardly. Well, we know that he gave Rush Limbaugh that Medal of Freedom. Like, what? What is that about? Yeah. So, and then down here in his 4th house, which is his family money, his real estate, his emotional security, the foundation of his life, where we can see past life. Both of these, the South Node is a past life point. This is a past life point, the IC down here. And then the Moon, of course, is where we always look for past life issues. Well, the rulers here are Mars and Scorpio. Mars and Pluto both rule Scorpio, and then Jupiter rules Sag. So again, it's like put Mars, Jupiter, and Pluto together in this house. We're talking tons of energy just gone into, tons of desire gone into controlling his family fortune, and constantly just with this overblown ego, if we bring Jupiter into the equation, this overblown ego to just get what he wants. So, and then another thing that's important to remember with his chart, the last thing before I move on to his to this Leo full moon right on his ascendant, and the configuration is just phenomenal. But the other thing that's important is 9th house up here is the house. It's a 9th house publishing, media, things like that of all types. But it's also the house of courts of law. And so we've got Venus ruling, even though there aren't any planets, remember, what rules Taurus? Well, it's Venus. What rules Aries? Well, that's Mars. So putting Venus and Mars up here in the 9th house, he has really learned over the years how to manipulate the legal system, how to use any means necessary, and then he, that's what he does. It's like he pushes it up the courts, and if he has to, he'll go all the way to the Supreme Court. So there's that. Okay, so I'm going to let his natal chart go for now, and let's look at the transits to. Let me put this over here. So here we have the full moon. And I'm actually doing this reading. It's going to take me a while to get it uploaded, but I'm actually doing it past the legal point. It was legal full moon at 8:56 a.m. my time, and it's now like about 9:25. So anyway, that's neither here nor there, but sorry. So with the moon here, you can see it's at 27 degrees. His ascendant is at 29 degrees. It's going to cross over into his first house, sense of self, or kind of like, I'm here. But because it's lining up with Mars, and it's also lining up with the descendant, right? And then transiting Sun is at 27, because whenever we have a full moon, we also have, it's always a exact opposite to the Sun. So the Sun is going to shine a light, and the moon is going to just kind of blow things up, because remember, his chart ruler is Mars, so that Mars is going to, and man, yeah, Mars and the Sun with this chart ruler, and the Sun here, we have this exact opposition. And if that's not enough, oh my goodness, we have the North Node up here and the South Node newly into, now these are transits for all of us. So everything in here, remember, is his natal chart, and everything out here are the transits. And we are all having these transits. So the North and South nodes so the North node is like guiding us in a certain way to look at things in our lives. And it changes, the nodes change every 18 months, 18 and a half months, somewhere in there. That's just figure about a year and a half. And the South node, it pulls out things that we maybe haven't dealt with that we need to deal with. So we're going to see sex scandals, money scandals, even more. Like, remember that's the other thing to remember. The nodes go backwards. So this North node is going to continue to move this direction into his, and it's going to connect with Uranus at some point. And that's going to really shake things up in the legal department, because remember, this is the house of courts of law. So, and Uranus has been there for quite some time. This is the reason I could see, well over a year ago, that he was not going to be reelected, because Uranus being in that ninth house, I knew that just wasn't going to happen for him. Thank God. Thank all of us voters. Thank goodness that democracy held. So anyway, North node up here, moving this way, bringing up issues because remember, back to where transiting Pluto and Capricorn and Mars and Venus, my goodness, or Venus and Mars, I should say, this stellium here that we're all going through, and we have been going through, and remember Saturn and Jupiter, we had all that conjunction with Pluto a while back, 2020. The deal with all of this, because Pluto brings up power issues. It brings up people who are trying to have power over others, people who need to go through some dark or deep healing to get rid of the darkness, people who need to have hard lessons, in the negative sense. In the positive sense, for the rest of us who are working on ourselves, like I'm sure you all are and have been, this brings us into our integrity, because Capricorn is very solid in the highest sense. It's very solid in the ability to be like the author of your own life and manifest what you want. This is why we saw, so many people leave their jobs, because they knew they weren't safe with the virus with the pandemic, Neptune in Pisces and Uranus in Taurus wants safety, and we will, rebel if we need to, or we will just walk away like no more of this, right? Well, Pluto in Capricorn is great for people like us, but it's not for someone who's corrupt, right? So on the highest levels of Capricorn, it's about integrity and being your own authority, standing in your own authority. But in the lowest levels, it's corruption. And, that would be quite an astrological case study to look at all these dark politicians that we've been encountering and see where, do they have, aspects to Pluto in Capricorn? Like, what's going on? Do they have a Capricorn sun, Mars, or Venus, or Mercury? Like, what's going on there? You can see his Pluto, transiting Pluto here. So wait, let's look at this first. So Pluto was born in his 12th house, where he needed to get in contact, into touch with all of his unconscious darkness, basically. That's the task. And then, at a younger age, it was in his first house, and he was probably too young to imagine how to even do that. Neither did he, nor did he incarnate into a family who supported any type of deep inner work or process work. It's like, no. I mean, those were the days when boys don't cry and girls don't get angry. And his mother, of course, was not very present for him because she was very ill. And he was raised in his daily life. You can see, here in the 6th house and the 4th house, it's like no one was really there. People were doing their own thing. So, but anyway, back to Pluto. So then, by the time he was old enough to try and develop his sense of self, Pluto was in his 2nd house of money. And, he had an opportunity here when Pluto hit his Chiron and Jupiter to heal, but he didn't. And then Pluto went through his 3rd house. He still had an opportunity to do some deep psychotherapy and try and heal any mental problems he might have had, but no. See, that's the problem. Narcissists, and especially psychopaths, I mean, every psychopath has narcissistic tendencies, but not all narcissists have psychopathic tendencies. But even narcissistic tendencies, those are the people that don't go to therapy. They don't do any inner work because they don't think anything's wrong with them, because they're not in touch with their sense of self, and they project everything outward onto the world, and it's their bad. Everyone else is bad and messed up, not me, right? So you'd think that he would have done some work going through there or through the 4th house, especially when Pluto crossed over his south node and his moon. He could have done a lot of work, but no. And instead, he just kept gathering more, financial, what he considered financial power. And you can imagine the debt that he's gone into. Pluto in the 5th house, that brings in financial speculation. And then, of course, we know that he's been tied to Putin and mafioso. I mean, he was born into a mafia family. He was. His father was part of the Genovese family, and then the Russians came in to Brighton Beach and took over the, Italian mob. And there we have it. And there he's had his connection with Putin and Russia for all of these years. So. And it wouldn't even matter if it was Putin. It could be somebody else. It would just be all these oligarchs who have been into money laundering, and they're tied to all the misery over humans on the planet. So this is where he's going, or this is where he's been, and now his transiting Pluto, being in his 5th house, is blowing up the means for him to recreate himself. The task there is to reinvent yourself, and especially heal any issue with your children, his or considered adults, but they don't really act like it. But his offspring and his heirs are, that would be the 5th house. And what is he doing? He's destroying his relationship with them. And they're having to, and it's their own fault, they're having to, CYOA, right? So everybody's flipping on him. And that's especially what I wanted to show with this chart, because this full moon is here, shining the light on his midheaven, which is how he participates in life. And for him, just remember, everything is all about money and transaction. And we have the 2 signs that are most connected to money right here. So we have a grand square going on from the full moon here. This is something that's in my, for my members, I have at the family level in my memberships, I do weekly astrological transits. And so that's in there for for my members to look at. But that was the thing that I noticed, was like, wow, look at this. And then I was busy but I realized suddenly, wait a minute, that full moon's at 27 degrees, and I think Trump has a late degree Leo ascendant, and I know from my downloads I've gotten from my guides over the years that the ascendant magnetizes. And with the full moon there, I'm thinking, public awareness of something he's done. And what happens? We have, Mazars. We have the Mazars situation. Here's his 8th house, where, Chiron, the wounding of people are trying to find their sense of self and how much they matter, and their unique individuality and their presence, all of that in his 8th house. So I don't think this is going to bode well for him, having Chiron transiting through his 8th house. But most of all, Neptune here. So there's so many things going on. Okay, so the moon, just remember, the moon shining light here, the sun shining light here. So who he is and what he attracts, and his relationships here, right? And then we have a grand cross here to here, and another grand cross from here to here. So this is a majorly important time for all of us to really get in touch with what our values are, and to dig our heels in and don't give up. Go for what you want, and don't ever give up on that. As long as it's aligned with the light, right? As long as it's aligned with love and care for other people. So, but he doesn't. So the light is being shown from all these angles. These are the ascendant, the IC, it's like coli, the descendant. So what you're magnetizing, your past lives, past wells of wisdom too. Your resources in your wisdom are here. But I don't know about him, because we've got late degree Scorpio here, and I don't think he's gotten his lesson. So this is his revenge, his patterns of revenge in his past lives. And so the South Node is showing, it's on display for us to see. And then his relationship point up here, and then how he participates in life, and his reputation are here and here, 10th house, and the midheaven. So it's like having 4 flashlights going on here, and trying to look into the core of who he is. And we are. It's obvious now that all he does is thinks about his security and money. And he's completely identified with money as being who he is. So take away his money, and he has to look at his deeper sense of, can he find out who he really is if his monies are gone, right? Because with the challenging aspects down here, Mars and Venus in Capricorn, and then Pluto's blowing up his ability to have anybody financially speculating on him. And he's got to be flip-flopping around all over the place like a fish out of water, wondering, what am I going to do, man? You know what I mean? Because he's hitting rock bottom down here, because this south node is going this way, and this is a very, very karmic point. He's going to be moving towards his like deeper mental issues as we go forward, that are going to come out over time, especially when he's in court, because the north node's going this way. His path in life is to deal with legal issues, and he's been the most litigious person on the planet, I would think. And so he's going, this is not going to be easy for him. And then here's Mazars they will no longer collude with his fraud. And we got to know that, I'm pretty sure, for entertainment purposes only here, but I would think that Mazars or Mazars, I don't know how to pronounce it, I would think that they were the accounting firm for mafia, for money laundering organizations, Deutsche Bank, other, any other criminals. So I don't care about their future, but they won't collude anymore. And we can see that up here with Neptune in the 7th house. He's losing all of his relationships. And remember, psychopaths and narcissists are completely dependent on relationships, because they don't have any sense of self, and they can't walk their own way until they heal, right? And we also have to look at the fact that his natal Jupiter's in the 2nd house, which has to do with, of course, his delusions around money. But this shows all his dependencies here, and we're going to have now. Neptune goes 164 years it takes to get around the chart, so it's not going to make it all the way before he leaves the planet. But it might be up here somewhere. But anyway, or maybe just in here. Neptune in his 7th house, dissolving his relationships. When it moves into the 8th house, which is in, oh my goodness, when was it? 2022, March of 2022, that's when it is. And I remember that it's going to stay there until like in 2035 or 6 or somewhere in there. He'll have Neptune moving through the 8th house. So again, this dissolving quality of, remember, 8th house is other people's resources, right? Not good when you have Neptune going through the 8th house, unless you're working spiritually, and then you would be connecting in your spiritual resources together, which is a beautiful thing. But not for him. That won't be happening for him. Because remember, he thinks everybody's to fulfill his desires, right? So anyway, this is Mazars, whatever, loss of support, along with Jupiter, because we have, with this Neptune here, we have this square happening. You'll notice how we've got 21 degrees here, and then we have 23 degrees, 25 over here. So Neptune is squaring this like family fortune, I run humanity type of bullshit that he's got going on in his brain. This is it. Neptune, transiting Neptune, moves very slowly. It's been building up to this point. When Jupiter gets there, when Jupiter catches up here in April, it's going to blow this up. Neptune in T-square to his fortune, his family fortune, and then down here to his moon, because look at what else is at 21 degrees, and it's conjunct his south node. So this is going to, Neptune, when Jupiter gets there, it's going to blow it up even further, but right now we're seeing the beginning of the end for him financially. All of his protection, I think, is dissolving with every breath he takes. Unless he were to try and turn something around and, confess and then try to, let's see, how would somebody like him do the best for his soul and the best for humanity? Because of, he's got all these planets in the house of humanity. and group consciousness, the best he could do would be to flip on all the dark money launderers and mafia and become an informant. But I don't know if his brains work correctly enough to be able to do that. I just, if he continues to have protection moving forward, I will know that he's been a confidential informant, but I don't think so. I honestly don't think so. But if he continues to be protected and he gets away with more, and the DOJ doesn't come after him, and he doesn't lose all his, if all his assets aren't seized, and he walks away and skates away, we will know. That would show me clearly that he would be a confidential informant, and that would be the only way he could turn things around. But then, if that's the case, we shouldn't see him out in the public sphere trying to become president again, and we shouldn't see him spouting off and lying about everything that he's constantly lying about, So, because everything's dissolving around him. He was saying that he had executive privilege over the National Archives Records Administration, all the records, but no, just yesterday, Biden, I think it was yesterday it signed it, and then this morning Biden comes out and says that NARA should provide the records within 15 days to get it to January 6th committee within the next couple of weeks, because they're running out of time. They really are. So we'll see how this goes down. But anyway, I don't think he's a confidential informant, at least not yet. And I don't know if he would ever do that, because I think he's stubborn as all get out, So anyway, let's see. What else as far as, okay, so we have this double square, major, and then this T-square up here to Neptune. What else do we have? Saturn here at 17 degrees is connecting over here to Chiron and Jupiter. So Saturn, the planet of lessons, and getting your lessons in, it's very karmic as well. I think everything's pretty karmic, but definitely Saturn is. It's in a connection. It's a trine, but it's still a connection. See, that's the thing is the trines and sextiles that should be opportunities. Sextiles should be opportunities, and trines would be something graceful and easy, and within harmony. They work well for those of us who are working in harmony in our lives, but not for somebody like him. It's going to be a connection. So once we have an exact connection, like we do here, 17 to Jupiter, lessons around how he has created loss for other people, but built his own wealth around it. And then, look what he did with the January 6th insurrection. Look at all those people that went to prison. He got them all fired up. Well, I guess they were dumb to do that anyway, but man, he was the instigator. That's what he is, right? This sun, North Node, Sun conjunct Uranus and Gemini, and his North Node there. He's been an instigator in other past lives, and this is his reputation. He's an instigator. So let's see, what else? So this connection here to Saturn in the 6th. Saturn in the 6th going through, he still has about another year or so, but I don't know that it's going to go so well for him on the health level. Saturn in the 6th can be some hard lessons health-wise. And because it's in Aquarius, and Aquarius rules both, definitely Uranus rules, Saturn and Uranus rule his 6th house of health. So this is why I've always thought he'd probably have a stroke or a heart attack, or a combo of one, connection of both. Here, nervous system problems is what we're talking about in the sign of Aquarius. But so we've got a trine here, and we've got a trine up to Uranus up here. And because Uranus is in tight orb in this stellium up here, the sun is his solar essence, Uranus is his soul shocks, and it's also to the mind, and it's also like something snapped probably when he was really young, or snapped further, from wherever he came. It's just like, oh my God. Anyway, so this connection here, 17 here and 17 here, and this connects to this whole stellium here. We're talking mental delusions, mental issues, and that's going to be I think his health downfall. And, maybe we'll see him get locked up. Maybe we'll see, like Theodore always says, Theodore went, I love you, Theodore. He's always seen him in handcuffs, and lately he keeps saying handcuffs. So maybe he's locked up in some prison ward, mental health institute. He gets ham sandwiches every day. I don't know. But this Saturn through the 6th house would not be good. Now remember, Saturn moves around the chart every 29 to 30 years. So he'd have to be 90 to make it to his 3rd Saturn return by the time Saturn made it around over here. I don't know that he'll live that long. So he's got karma with humanity. This is another astrological, I believe, could say proof that he was Mussolini and Caligula, and who knows who else in between. Maybe some female incarnations, I don't know. But definitely fame, we're talking fame, and that's pretty much how he rolls. He's got to have that attention, right? Let's see, what else with this before I let go of these transits? So, okay, wait, Venus at 16, and conjunct Mars, 16 here. So, money and what he goes after, because that makes him feel good. That's his, moving through his house of pleasure. He's going to be even more intent on having that. Is squaring Jupiter and Chiron over here exactly. And we could kind of include Neptune just because it's all in Libra, and Libra energy blends together well. So there's a challenge, and it's in exact connection here to his ability to expand further in relationship, and especially to his financial resources. So this is all, like I said, loss of financial support, relationship and financial support dissolving. That's the important takeaway here. And and then with Chiron here, it's like his deepest inner wounding is not good, because Chiron represents not only our deepest wounding but also our gifts. But you have to do that deep inner work and to get the gift to be released. He has not done that deeper work. So Jupiter here in this 2nd house of money, values, and security, and his self-esteem, and so now it's turned into deep inner insecurity, deep insecurity. And that's especially the case with, this Cancer stellium up here. That's important to note, that his inner securities lie in the hands of others. Like, what a setup his soul chose to go through this lifetime. So transiting Venus is squaring this natal Jupiter. So the brings challenges into his protection and blessings. He was blessed to be born into a family of money, but he has violated that blessing over and over and over. Jupiter is a planet of spiritual law, and love and truth always prevail, and he is going to learn that the hard way, because even though Jupiter, we could say Jupiter is some type of a blessing, well, he's just been blessed to have this major 7th house relationship. 7th house is relationships. He's been blessed with victim types of people, and people who are just crazy, Anybody that's still for him really needs to question their sanity and why they would be for him. Are they that blind, right? I mean, there's that real possibility. So, if those are the kind of blessings you want, dude, go for it. Fine. It's not going to go well. Because when you hitch your wagon to this type of a leader, he falls, and then where? Well, let's just pray for their souls to not completely fall apart themselves. Let's hope that they find their own connection to their own inner self, love, and can, take over. But man, I just feel like he's going to be hitting rock bottom with his resources. We've got, the issues with courts of law that are going to be very shocking to him. His survival is moving towards being shocked, and it's going to really, hand him his issues on insecurity to work through. Let's see, what else? We have this opposition here going on from Pluto. It's going out of orb. It's not a tight orb. See how Pluto's at 27 degrees here, and then Saturn and Venus are at 23. So Pluto has been moving slowly, of course, and they were in exact opposition, which is another reason I saw that he was not going to be reelected. But Pluto's continuing to move forward. Mercury goes really fast, and it's going to catch up here to Saturn, and the sun's going to keep going. Pretty soon we'll be in Pisces, time. But Pluto, it takes a long time. I mean, if he doesn't fall apart by the time Pluto's in the 6th, I mean, the health issues are already, I think are going to be challenging. By the time Pluto moves to the 6th house, this is our house of health. It's our house of daily routines and the details of holding our lives together. Pluto in the 6th is like, well, if you're using it well, it'll help you find a new job. It'll help you take care of your body in the best possible ways. But for some people who haven't been, this guy's lived off of McDonald's all his life. That's going to catch up to him. If he makes it that long, if he makes it to, by the time we have Pluto hit, Aquarius in 2024, it won't even stay. It's going to go back and forth into Capricorn until 2024. But, here's another reason why I can see why he will not run for president again, because his health isn't going to hold up. His money's dried up. If we have the RNC funding him, maybe they'll try, but I believe in the power of the people more than I believe in the Republican National Party or GOP. They just forget about it. Forget about it, right? So, but anyway, even if he did make it, Pluto in the 6th house would have him dying in office. Like even if by some weird fluke of a chance, or I don't believe that it could happen. I don't believe that there are that many. The numbers of Republicans who would vote for him, I think, are very small. And Democratic voters majorly outnumber Republican voters, which is why the GOP is intent on cheating, is why they're trying with the voter suppression so hard. But if they do, if they do manage to take over the House, or we're just going to fight harder. It's not over until it's over. And some people are going to have some really hard lessons. And a lot of them are older, and they're not going to stay on the planet for long. And I would think they have health issues, like Mitch McConnell. These guys are on their last legs. It's their last gasp. So I think I'm done with this chart. The last two charts should go quickly, but it just reinforce more of what I've been saying. So anyway, the next chart we have is his secondary progressions. Now the way progressions work is and I'll only be paying attention to the personal planets with secondary progressions, because it's the progression of the sun 1 degree every year of of life. So he started out with 22 degrees Gemini, and now at 75, his sun has progressed, because you go 1 degree for each year. He's now more of a Virgo. So in the unhealthy aspect of Virgo, it's worrying all the time, and it's trying to, in his case, it's trying to micromanage others. And he's trying to find, like, who the heck he really is. I mean, there's a part of him that is trying to wake up to that. But he thinks his money is himself. So without the money, he's nothing, right? So there's the problem. So with his, so with the moon there, the sun there, he's, thinking, so Mercury rules Virgo, so he's constantly thinking about his security or lack of. We do have, let's see, is there any, no, I'm not seeing any squares. I'm not seeing, of course, there's no oppositions over here. So there's nothing more to look at there with the sun, unless I'm missing something. If there's another astrologer out there watching this, feel free to chime in if I've missed anything, because I am on a real tight schedule anyway, too, so I can't spend too much more time on this. I may miss something, but anyway, let's go to his moon. His moon's the last, it's been a little while. It's been in Libra, but notice how it's an exact. Now this is something that is important. We don't progress Neptune because it's an outer planet. We do progress Mars, Chiron, Venus, not Jupiter. Okay, so I'm only going to look at the moon, Mars, and it's Mars has already progressed over his Neptune. This is where we can see how he has he had his chance to have more compassion in relationship, to have healthier relationships, but no, he chose to bring, the gift from him has been he's released the swamp creatures. So this moon, progressed moon over Neptune, this again is this disillusion of, this is where his emotional body is just completely diluted, and he's going to be experiencing that reverberation of not having worked on his healing, with his deep inner insecurities. It sounds kind of redundant, but anyway. So this is important right here. And then again, if we want to look at the moon as being the progressed moon for him in his chart, now this is only for him, or maybe if there's anyone else out there with his exact combination, born at the same time. Anyway, the moon would be the public. So the public is going to, for him, because he's in a position of power and he's had some fame, or he was in a position of power and he has had some fame. It's now the moon. The moon will represent his people seeing him for who he truly is, and so there's this like dissolving again. Here's another aspect that reinforces, because that's the way it works in astrology. You look at the transits, you look at the progressions, and you look at the solar arcs, and if you see the same thing coming through in all three charts, you know that this is the case, right? So here again, dissolving relationships, dissolving his unhealthy ego that he needs to face, right? Yeah. And then Venus is see how Venus is at 21 degrees, 15 minutes, and his third house cusp is 21 degrees, 12 minutes. So Venus has newly crossed into the third house. This is important. So this is him, again, thinking and always connecting with others, trying to get a mirror back to himself. Like who am I? Can I get what I want from you? Am I somebody? Again, this is the same thing where he is completely dependent. His deepest wounding is where he's dependent upon other people, right? So when these relationships fall apart, and this is why, people who've been apathetic about him and voted him in the second time and who still love him, they've got something to work through too, because it's they've been the relationships that have put him into power, and he's hurt people. His administration was so damaging, and he did nothing but run his own financial empire while he was out, while he was there, and that's of course why he had to flush all those documents down the toilet, and why he was, shredding things all the time and tearing them up and throwing them on the floor and let his people pick them up, like he's the king. Yeah. Anyway, so as far as the personal planets, Mars here, progressed Mars connecting over his Chiron. This is really important because, again, he's going to want to go towards relationships more, but because he hasn't done his healthy relationship work, because relationships are mirrors, and he's done nothing but project onto the outer world, Remember, he was saying all that about flushing. People are flushing toilets 10, 15 times. That was him flushing his own papers down the toilet. This is this problem here. That's up. Mars moves energy, and so the movement of energy from his deepest wounding is coming up, and it's triggering all of his insecurities, all of his self-esteem issues. So, this is why someone like his him and his father wind up with Alzheimer's at the end of their lives because they weren't willing to work on. Now, I would never say that about everyone who goes through Alzheimer's because, it all depends on the personality you're dealing with. But I've always felt that Alzheimer's was from not doing our inner work from the past. And then so by the time we're older, but then again, you know what? Some people live so long. But then again, some people live, look at Betty White. She almost made it to 100. She didn't have any Alzheimer's. She still had her sense of humor intact too. So anyway, okay, so we've done Sun, Venus, Mars, Sun, Moon, Mars. Venus here, we talked about that. And let's see, are we making any aspects anywhere? We've got a trine. Wait. 21 to 22 up here. Yeah, it's a trine. I'm sorry, what am I saying? Gemini's an air sign, and so is Libra. It's like, yeah. Okay, so he does have a trine. So he does have Venus trining his sun. And yeah, so again, he's going to do his best to, because Venus in the dark side, can seduce and manipulate. He's going to try to seduce anybody he can in his work environment to, to help him out. But again, remember, with that Neptune, that transiting Neptune over here in the 7th and moving to the 8th in his natal chart, that's not going to work. He might get some more crazies to collude with him, but then he brings everyone down. Like, look what he's done. They've been working their way up the food chain. Now they're at Rudy, so who do you think's next? Oh, my God. Okay, so let's see. Anything else? Progressed Mercury is where? In his 12th. We don't progress these outer planets, but Mercury definitely, and to have it in his 12th house, that has to have been challenging. That's been going on. It'll be quite some time before it hits his ascendant, but I feel he's lost in space with this. Now, the opportunity for him would be to get in touch with his heart and go through to try to find his spirit, but again, he's got so much crusty soul substance to get through that I don't see it happening. So, okay, let's move on. Now we have his solar arcs directed. Now with this chart, you do read everything. It's different than progressions. So what I'm seeing here is that I'm going to focus on Pluto here first because that's caught my eye. This is newly into his third house because 21 degrees, 22 degrees here. So newly moved into his third house. And of course, the third house is our mental processes and how we process information, how we communicate with others. I think he's been destroying his mind and the way it works and the way he communicates. I don't feel that that's a healthy thing there. Yeah, I don't feel like that's a healthy thing going on. There is a trine up here to his Sun, North Node, and Uranus, which is, the beauty of the way the universe works is it's always trying to help you heal. So if he can heal his mind in some way, it could shift everything. Like I said, if he would decide to become a confidential informant, that's the only way I think he could retrieve his soul at this point. I don't know what else he could do, really. He would need to completely confess everything he's done and, have his come to Jesus moment. I don't think he does that. I don't think he'll do that. Okay, so let's see, anything else? I'm drawn here to Uranus in his first solar arc, Uranus, and the solar arc Sun, and this whole stellium in Virgo, tight orb here. Again, that I'm probably worrying a lot, probably having a hard time sleeping, and he's probably very antsy all the time. Nervous system issues. Oof, man. And Mercury there doesn't help. Mercury is getting ready to move into a second. Now, Mercury on a global type of a level can be messages and detailed messages coming through about his finances moving into here sometime. Now, Saturn and Venus, I have a feeling this has to do with tax laws, because this is a tight connection here. See, we've got 6 degrees, 5 degrees here, and this has been happening. Now, of course, we know that it's tax fraud, bank fraud, insurance fraud, all of those things he's going to be dealing with. Yeah, major lessons there. Wow. He has been dealing with them, but it's going to come up, and especially Venus. Saturn's going to continue moving and have deeper connections or a tighter orb here. Wow, we're looking like moving through time and space here. Yeah, this is not going to be good financially for him. Man. Okay, so what else? Neptune down here over his North Node and the Moon. I think this is going to have, and oh my goodness, with Chiron, Jupiter, yeah, I think this is going to have the effect of dissolving his so-called fame. He's going to be famous for some things like he already is, but it's not what anybody should want to have. And then with the Moon up here in the 7th house, this happened a while ago, but it's still not that far really, because we're talking 29 degrees. So if you're new to astrology, there is no 30 degrees. There's 30 degrees to each sign, but it goes from 0 to 29. So this is like the last degree here, and it's not a total tight orb to this. Well, it's pretty close to this Moon opposition Mars. Yeah, it's been challenging for him. But again, the Moon in Pisces can bring in, and I'm only saying this because this is going to be a really good thing for people who are highly sensitive, psychic, and compassionate. But that's not his case. So this feels to me like more like, victim, because the downside of Pisces can be blaming others and victimization, not taking self-responsibility for your own life. So again, these are the types of relationships that he's going to identify with, with his ego. It's like it's going to be the poor me, and then he's going to use his instigating, tendencies to try and that's what the darker ones do, is they try to pit everyone against each other and make them fearful of each other, right? That's what he did with January 6th, with the insurrection. So I'm seeing the dissolution here of treason, traitor, Trump. And with that, I am complete. Okay, thanks you guys. Bye.